What's up everyone, welcome back to the studio. Today I'm going to be talking about screen printed or Plastisol transfers, how I use them for my clothing brand, how it differs from vinyl, the advantages, disadvantages, and also I'm just going to do a demo on how I press them. So without further delay, let's get right into it. Today we're going to be pressing my Illusions tee in black right here. This is a Plastisol transfer on the front and back, printed on LA Apparel 6.5 ounce heavy tee. So it's one of my best sellers and I'm going to show you how I put it together. So this is actually one of the transfer sheets I have right here. It is a 12.5 or 12.75 by 19 gang sheet. But as you can see, I use the entire sheet. So pretty much I have to pay for the whole sheet to get the design done. So that's why my price is a little bit higher per sheet. But you know, that's just one of the things that I like to do. And that's one of the advantages of being able to order sheets instead of going to a screen printer, is if I just want to do 24 of this graphic, because I'm not sure if it's going to sell or not, I can always just order 24, see how it does. If it performs really well, I can either order more transfers to do it myself, or I can go to a screen printer and get it done locally. And here's another sheet. This is from Howard, and you can see that this one is a full gang sheet. I haven't cut it yet, but it's another jumbo sheet. I believe it's 12.5 by 17.5, so you get a lot of room to play with. And the reason why you want to organize your graphics like this is because if you wanted to have a back graphic here, a front graphic here, and maybe some tester graphics here, you can always just order one sheet and then you can cut them up like this. So this way you just get more bang for your buck basically, because you can get multiple designs off of one sheet instead of having to order a bunch of separate sheets. So I got two examples here. This is from Howard, and notice how there's no halo or ghosting around the white text. And that's what sold me on it, is I really don't like it when you can see like that clear film around it. Some places have that, and I just feel like if you're saying it's a screen printed transfer, that's really misleading, because no screen printed work has a gray clear outline around it. So this one is perfect, and yeah, it's just ink on fabric. And if you want to see the back side, that one's a TKO transfer as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, like look at all these details, look at the dots. So this is all in the artwork, right? Like this isn't because the company is good. Like obviously the company being good helps, but you have to know how to prepare your artwork and how to design to get these effects. And like this detail is crazy, because I'm pretty sure most of this is accurate to the artwork. I can try and pull up the artwork to the side of the screen, but I'm just so impressed with all this detail. And it feels like screen print, like it's ink. So yeah, it feels awesome. And similar to this one's like simple, you know, but one color print, black, there's no raised edges, which I like. But sometimes it does feel like I catch an edge, which is not a big deal obviously, but I kind of like it when it feels perfectly smooth. I can kind of feel a little bit of texture on the edges here, which, you know, normal screen print doesn't have that. But regardless, like the ink itself is really smooth, so I don't really care. And the placement, the sizing, and all that is what makes the garment. So this has been washed like multiple times, and I don't know if you can see any stretching or cracking. I know that sometimes, like because my lines are so thin, it does start to crack a little bit on like small parts, but my design's also distressed, so it kind of like counters the look. It actually just kind of contributes to the distressed look. So yeah, that's just something that I do with my designs, but this is from TKO. Press settings, we're gonna go in with the 325 temperature in 12 seconds. I usually pop it open at 10 seconds, but I like to have those extra 2 seconds just in case I wanna press it a little bit longer, or if I delay and bring the clamp down, because I'm sure that happens to some of y'all as well. The timer starts right the second it goes down like this, even if it's not pressed all the way. So I keep it at 12 just so I feel like 12 is actually 10 or 11, and that way I don't miss the cure time. So as the press is heating up, I just want to talk about some of the financials and logistics that go into this. So the way you order Plastisol transfers is you usually go to another company such as TKO or Howard, which are the two companies that I like to use. And the reason why I like to use those two companies is because I went through a bunch of samples with the Stahls, Supercolor, FM Expressions, or I think that's their name. And anyway, I tried all of them out, and for me, I really liked the look and feel of these two companies. I actually saw Howard at Impressions, and that was the first time I saw them, and I was instantly blown away by how detailed their halftones were and how much detail you can retain on these prints. I'm gonna show you a little B-roll here cutting to my Dreams design, but you can see all the small details. And I've washed this shirt like 4 or 5 times, and it's been perfectly fine, nothing comes off. So yeah, it's really great, and the feel is screen print, the look is screen print. So how does this all differ from actual screen print? The only difference I see is that when you screen print something, it's going straight onto the garment. You don't need any transfer powder, you don't need any heat presses, it just goes straight on, like ink to cloth. Versus this, you're pressing it on, so there's transfer powder and there's a cure time and all this stuff. But at the same time, when you screen prints also have to go through a curing system. So what's the difference? I can't 100% tell you. I've never had any issues with them. Obviously they crack over time, like after 30, 40 washes, kind of like normal screen print. I don't have any screen printed shirt that's been so indestructible or flawless that it hasn't fallen apart in the wash. Like everything over time does deteriorate. And I just think there's this weird misconception that screen print is so much superior than what you can find through a heat pressing company, because Plastisol transfers are technically screen prints. So it's just done through a different method. And if there's any screen printers that want to refute that, please do, because I just don't have the information or knowledge on it. And if you can tell me why or how regular screen print is that much better than pressed on screen print, like please let me know, because I would love to learn more. In terms of pricing, let's go over this oversized 12.5 by 17.5 Plastisol transfer from Howard. So I paid $247 per unit because I ordered 108 units for a total of $266.76. And with shipping, which was 25 bucks for 2-day air to California, it was $291.76. So let's just say my price bumped up by like, I don't know, 20 cents or something like that. So $270 per unit. And then another one, I got 72 units of another design, and that one was $291. So same thing, let's add like 20 cents, so $3.10 per print. So how does this compare to regular screen printing? When you do regular screen printing, typically at a print shop, you gotta pay for setup fees, screen fees, whatever fees they wanna add on, artwork separation fees, setup fees. There's a bunch of setup fees, basically. Some places just work it into their cost. So I'm just gonna go off another company that I'm familiar with, but I looked at their pricing sheet and they charge around $4 per print if you do less than 72. So by paying a little bit more upfront to get these transfers, you're actually saving money on your prints. And not only that, but because you're ordering transfer sheets, you don't have to commit to your garments being printed with that same design, meaning that you can have your blanks on the side, and once you get orders in, you can just put the design you want on it versus committing to 40, 72, 144, whatever the MOQs are. And that's why transfers are so great, because you can always focus more on designing. You don't have to commit to one design actually selling, and you can just experiment and see what does best. And this is a good strategy that I think a lot of people don't talk about, is this way, ordering sheets, yeah, it's 200 bucks, but imagine if you printed 100 shirts on LA Apparel garments. That's gonna cost close to like $1,000, right? If you order 100, because those shirts are pretty expensive. And then you're getting print work done on it. So now you're committed to about $800 to $1,000 in inventory, which if it doesn't sell well, you're just gonna be sitting on it. Versus if you have blanks, you can always order more transfer sheets and test out new designs. And if you strike gold with a new design, then you can just keep on printing that and pressing that onto your garments. So that's a good strategy that I'll recommend if you have a heat press. One of the drawbacks though is if you use a heat press, you have to line up every single design perfectly, press it, and then move on to the next one. If you have a screen print setup, the print's gonna be in the exact same position every single time. If you have an auto, those arms just circle around, and all you have to do is load up the garment and then press go, and then you're pretty much good to go. If you're doing a manual press, you obviously have to do the squeegee yourself, but still, the placement is always the same, so you can get this done so much faster on a screen print machine. So that's the only con I would say is, yeah, like speed and production wise, you can't really beat how fast screen printing is for higher quantity. But the cons of saving, a little bit of money and time for the risk mitigation that you can get by not committing to these units, I think outweighs the speed until you have the volume to prove that, yeah, it's worth paying for the screen printed jobs outside. All right, the press is about ready, so we're gonna get the shirt. Here we have my crate of blanks. We're gonna be using extra large. Wow, conveniently placed. That definitely wasn't pre-planned before the video. But anyway, here is a LA Apparel 1801 GD, my favorite blank to use. I put my label on it beforehand so that I don't have to do it later. And also just a pro tip, like make sure you do your labels first, because if you have your design like really high on the back and you press your label afterwards, you're gonna leave a mark on your print. So that's why it's always good to get your labels done first to avoid any of those issues. For this press, we're gonna be using this one here, Active Sport from TKO. So I like to keep these sheets just so I know exactly how much I paid for and what the settings are. But yeah, so this is the Sports Plus or Active Sport. And the difference between the two is that the Active Sport doesn't go as fine on the mesh count. And also they don't guarantee as much of like a 50 wash guarantee kind of thing, but I haven't seen much problems with these anyway. I think it's just their marketing shtick, but yeah, these are safe up to 25 washes, but I've seen some people wear my shirts like over 50 times and they don't look any different than any other screen print that eventually kind of falls apart, you know, or not falls apart, but has some cracking. Like I said, like thin parts, no matter what, even if it's really screen printed, it's still gonna crack, right? Because the lines are so thin. But yeah, so we're gonna be pressing this. This is a jumbo sheet. This is 12.75 by 19. So I have these for the size XL and above, and I have a smaller print that is actually for smaller sizes. But I usually don't do that. Only for this shirt I did it because I only ordered 16 and I ended up selling more. So for the second round, I ordered a smaller size to kind of accommodate for smaller sizes, basically. And for the front, we'll be hitting this on the front left chest. So let's get right to the pressing. All right, let's do the front first. So standard, load it up. Make sure that you get all that lint and dust and random things off the shirt so you can get a clear transfer onto the shirt. So we got this here. We're gonna bring it up so the collar's out of the way. And then as usual, we have to get rid of the moisture and we have to also do a pressure test. Bring it down. Oh, that is very tight. So we're gonna loosen this up. All right, cool. So it stays. We get that crazy recoil. And then as usual, I use this thing. Is it shameful to use this? It might be, but I don't care because I'd rather do it right. Especially the very, very first shirt. I think it helps to have that reference down for placement because that way, once you get in the groove and start cranking out a bunch of shirts, you already kind of have this placement in mind. But the first one, I like to just make sure it's good. I like to go out slightly more to the outer edge on the XL because as an extra large shirt, the center is still the same, but you know, obviously the length between the center and the sleeve changes. You don't want to go too far out because some people press so far out that the design ends up on like their rib cage and that looks really bad, obviously. So usually you want to stay a little bit more inward than outward. On mock-ups, it looks better when you go outward, but in real life, it is not good to go outward. It's better to be on the inside, and that looks good to me. I'm gonna remove this guy. And then another tip is usually on the collar, you just draw a line straight down and that center should hit the center of your artwork. But because this is a tall neck, it's like that tall neckline situation, the collar is brought in. So that's also why I go a little bit more outward because I know that even if the collar is here and the center is like around here on the collar, I know that it should be adjusted slightly to the right. So bring it out a little bit more and then that looks pretty good. No Teflon sheets needed for this one. This is a straight press and we're gonna go for it. 325 for 10 seconds-ish. Heavy pressure. Press it open. Hot peel. So just rip it off. Beautiful. And then cement it in with the sheet. And then now we just chill for 10 more seconds and I'll show you all what it looks like once this pops open. So here's a close-up on the print. As you can see, there's no ghosting, very clean. You can see the fabric texture coming through, which I love because that way people don't say, oh, it looks like a sticker, because it's not, it's ink. And yeah, this just looks really, really clean. So let's get to the back side now. All right, for the back, make sure that you are grabbing the edges centered before you start threading it through because this is very crucial to make sure you don't mess up the placement. But thankfully I have the threader. So with the threader, this is a lot easier. Let's grab on the ends like this and then bring it all the way in, pull it evenly. And then I bring it to the point where the collar hits the end here. And then that way I know that it's evenly distributed. And then we just kind of work on the centering. And then we have the transfer sheet on the side ready to go. And what I found out is that even though the sheets are a full size sheet, I still try to fold it because if you notice, I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but the gap on this side and the gap on this side is uneven. Like it's definitely leaning on the left side. So if I centered it based on the sheet, I'll be wrong. So I still fold it. And then I try to fold it where the ink matches on both sides. And then also a lot of my designs, I have markers. So I have like this star at the bottom and this is 100% centered to the artwork. So it's good to put like little markers that you're confident with in your artwork that you can reference when you press, because that way I know that this is centered. The back, I like to go about 3 to 4 inches down. So yeah, I mean, it's honestly kind of an eyeball thing, but yeah, I go full 4 fingers from the collar back, and then I just go like a little bit more than that. The star is centered to the collar here. So some ways to check is I'll lift up the collar like this, and then just make sure that this line is as close as possible to the center. And then yeah, the text looks pretty good. So we're gonna just go for it and hope for the best as usual. All right, here we go. Okay, then we peel it fast. Beautiful. Everything transferred well. And then we get the sheet, which covers the whole thing. Press it again. All right, and let's get that close up. We'll get that close up. Yeah. Plastisol transfer from TKO. Active sport. Very opaque. So good to the touch, and we're done with this one right here. So you're probably wondering, what's the difference between Plastisol transfers and vinyl and HTV and all this stuff? So first, obviously, Plastisol is ink. Vinyl is whatever vinyl is. Has an adhesive on the back, and then the adhesive sticks to the garment. Plastisol transfers are ink on transfer powder, and then it sticks. So fundamentally, it's kind of the same, but I think the technology and the chemicals are obviously different. And the reason you would pick Plastisol transfers over vinyl is because, one, you can't get details like that with vinyl. Like, I don't think a cutter can cut halftones that detailed. And even if it could, I don't know if it's gonna stay on your garment. And second of all, it just makes your life a lot easier because 1, you're not weeding, 2, you're not cutting, and 3, a pro, like companies like TKO, Stalls, whatever, Howard, they're gonna be making the transfers for you. And they are huge companies that have years of experience making the products and making sure that it works best, because you know, if they make something that doesn't do well, obviously word's gonna spread in today's day and age with social media. So you know, it's been QA/QC'd and you have that name to back it up. So that's why I like using these transfers, is because 1, my designs wouldn't work on a vinyl cutter, and 2, because 1, most of my designs, besides simple text stuff, would not work on a vinyl cutter, and I know that, and that's why I bought the P press, because I was aware that you can order these sheets, and these sheets are a game changer. Like, let me tell you, if you're a designer, if you're trying to do like real streetwear or real clothing designs, like, you can't really beat a screen printed transfer besides going to a screen printer. And that's just because the detail, the feel, the look, like, it's just unmatched. Because vinyl, no matter what, even if it's matte, if it's shiny, whatever, you can't get halftones on a vinyl. DTF, some places do it well. Some places you get that ghosting or halos or whatever it's called around the halftones, and I just don't like that. All vinyl and film, they kind of wrinkle up over time, and that's what I noticed with some of my DTF shirts that I've had for a couple of years. It's like, yeah, the print looks good, but it's wrinkling, and it just doesn't give that same vibe as like a print that ages over time and cracks. And personally, I'm a fan of that because I think garments and ink are just like really hand in hand. They look really good together, versus you start introducing this other element of like a film, and it just kind of starts to look a little bit unnatural, especially like if a shirt is 10 years old, right? Let's say there's a vintage tee in the future that was DTF'd. Like, what do you think that would look like? The print colors might be perfect, but it's gonna look like shredded up film versus like ink cracks, and it kind of has that organic look to it. Obviously, that's a personal preference. Like, some people might not care about what I have to say about it, but I just wanted to share my point of view on why I prefer to use ink or Plastisol transfers over film if I can. And all my shirts, including this one, these shirts are screen printed, but the ones that I sell now are DTG'd, and I've wash tested them over 20-30 times, and they're perfectly good because obviously the printer I work with is very reliable, they have a good reputation, and they pride themselves in being a high quality DTG provider. So anyone can say this is better than the other thing, but at the end of the day, whoever makes it is the person that's gonna dictate the quality. So make sure you research who you're working with and make sure you test it yourself. That wraps up the demo on the screen printed transfer on the heat press. Obviously, this is something that comes with time, figuring out your materials, figuring out your blanks, figuring out how to design to get transfers to look good, but I have no doubt that you guys can figure this out. So if you wanna go check out the transfers, the 2 that I use again is TKO and Howard. There's plenty of other brands out there, so if you wanna try them all, give it a shot. I'm not endorsed or paid to say this, so it's like my choice to go with these companies, and you know, I'm just hoping that TKO will offer a bigger size for their Premium Plus, because that's kind of half the reason why I started looking for another vendor, was because I've asked them for the last year and a half if they're gonna expand their sizes bigger than 12 by 18, and they said no. So I gotta find a solution, and Howard has been my solution. So shout out to Howard. Thank you all for offering the bigger print sizes, because I like designing big. I like that 12.5 on the back because it does look different than a 12. And if you don't think it does, then that's cool, but I think it makes a huge difference on the aesthetic and the way the graphics feel on the back of the tee. So yeah, shout out to Howard, shout out to TKO. Thank you guys for making amazing products, because I don't think I'll be able to run my business without y'all. And obviously screen printed transfers are my favorite to go. And yeah, I mean, this is all a learning process. So I hope you all learned something today. If there's something else you want to see about the screen printed transfers or anything else in general, let me know in the comments below. If you want to check out the equipment, I got that link in the description box as well. So all the links are there. If you want to buy anything, if you want to see what I make, it's all there. Help me out if you want. If not, it's all good. Life goes on. But thank you all for stopping by, and I'll catch you all next time.